How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and in this video, we're going to focus on the next couple of winter storms that are expected to move through the west coast of the United States as well as portions of the Midwest, and talk about the possibilities we could see some snowfall in the Northeast before we enter the springtime, where of course the temperatures are expected to get warmer. So let's first take a look at the GFS model right now, and as you can see, it's going to be fairly clear, but it won't last for that long because the computer models are currently expecting numerous troughs come ashore the Pacific coast, and that should lead to a higher amount of precipitation, even in areas where you don't receive that much precipitation. Even down towards places like Southern California, you could see some rain move in, but right around the Wednesday, March 12th time frame. But moving even more forward, this is a big winter storm that we're gonna pay close attention to, because it should set the stage for our next potential winter storm for the Midwest. And if I were to go a little bit further back, there is that possibility of maybe some snow showers in portions of upstate New York and New England. Right now, the European model is showing a fairly similar forecast, which is making me more inclined to believe that this area of snow will develop by the time we approach this Thursday, March 13th. So at least be aware of that in portions of upstate New York, especially, and New England. I don't expect this to be a lot at this point. We're approaching that forecast time period, of course, where the forecast is less likely to change significantly. And based on what we're seeing, there won't be a lot of instability for this low pressure system to work with. We mainly see a slight jet stream dip, which really shows that there isn't a lot of instability. So mainly you should expect isolated snow showers, maybe around an inch of snow, but that's about it. So it's not going to be anything major. But if you're still hoping for some snowfall before we see those temperatures warm up as we approach the spring time frame, then this could be potentially your last shot at it in portions of New England and upstate New York. So definitely be aware of this. Don't expect anything major out of this, but it could be your next possibility of snowfall. But the bigger winter storm that that's expected to move through the Midwest at this point, that's more the long-term future, is expected to be quite a powerful storm system. We're going to see its millibar pressure drop down to 979 millibars, and we see that there's going to be plenty of cold air behind this storm system now, and we do see heavy snowfall right over many of the northern Midwest states, such as Nebraska, into south and portions of eastern North Dakota, and extending into western Minnesota as well. Now, of course, there still is uncertainty with the forecast, because the European model is expecting the area of snowfall to be less extensive, while if we were to take a look at the GFS model, we see the snowfall is a lot more extensive. This brings accumulating snowfall as far west as the western portions of the Dakotas. So this would be a much more significant winter storm for you guys. Not just a winter storm, but likely a blizzard in a scenario like this, where we see the isobars very tightly packed, which represents that there's expected to be strong winds with this as well. And we do have a pretty strong ridge just to the northwest of this low pressure system that should help enhance the pressure gradient, and this should lead to very gusty winds over this area. In terms of how gusty, well, if we were to take a look at a 10 meter wind speed forecast, this is in kilometers. We do see that the wind speed could range anywhere between 25 to 35 knots, which would be equivalent easily to over 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. And I wouldn't be surprised if we do see localized areas of 60 mile per hour wind gusts. And while there is still uncertainty with the forecast, both the most reliable computer models are taking just enough of a similar forecast to the point where this will be right around the ballpark, but the small details will matter for certain areas, like I said, for the western portions of Dakotas, because if the GFS model ends up being more correct, then you guys should expect much more significant snowfall in the western portions of the Dakotas, while if the European model was correct, then we'd see the heaviest snowfall, mainly relegated to the eastern portions of the Dakotas and, of course, western Minnesota. So that's something we're going to need to pay very close attention to. I think a big part that will determine how much snow we'll see on the western side of this storm is really how much instability will exist. Because if we were to take a look at both the computer models at the same time period, let's start at Friday, the 12Z time period on Friday. We do see a pretty large area of snowfall on the western side of this low pressure system, but moving into the GFS model, we do see that the storm system is a little bit further northward, and it's just slightly a bit more stronger, as there's just a bit more instability, at least initially in the GFS model scenario, which certainly helps enhance the instability for a larger area of snowfall to develop and impact the areas further westward. And you might notice that the GFS model is also taking a track a little bit further westward, at least early on, which does enhance the possibility the snowfall will move further westward as well. So it really all depends on how strong the ridging will be just to the east of this low pressure system. If it ends up being a little stronger, not only will the storm system move further westward, but we'll also see a more intense snowstorm for the area of snowfall to be larger and impact a larger area, because that would enhance the instability. While if the European model ends up being correct, we'll see less instability and the snowstorm move a little bit further eastward. Let's take a look at the height anomalies to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So here's how it looks like in the GFS model scenario. Taking a look at the European model scenario, we see the ridging is weaker, as well as the strength of the slow is weaker, which means that the area of snowfall is less. So a key thing we'll need to pay very close attention to is how strong the ridging builds, and in fact that will be determined by this upper level low, how strong it'll be, and we won't get a good idea of that until the middle portion of next week. Once we really get to see this upper level low move through the southwestern states, that's when we'll get a better idea of what to expect. But I do expect a major winter storm to impact the northern Midwest. The key question remains exactly where and how strong this storm system will be. And I'll certainly keep you guys updated over the next several days as we get more updates with that forecast. Now that, let's say the GFS model was completely correct when it comes to its snowfall accumulation forecast. You're going to clearly see that the GFS model is very aggressive when it comes to the amount of snowfall it's forecasting. We see that it does bring, of course, heavy amount of snowfall over all the higher elevations of the Rocky Mountain ranges, but headed into the Dakotas, we could easily be talking about a snow event that would bring anywhere between 6 to 10 inches of snowfall. A large area of mainly 1 to 3 inches of snowfall over Minnesota, so it seems like the bulk of the snowfall would be focusing a little bit more over the Dakotas, so you definitely want to be aware of this. While on the other hand, if we were to take a look at the European model's forecasts for this same scenario, the snowfall, like I said, is a lot more isolated. We mainly see patches of right around 1 to 3 inches of snowfall to localized areas where it's around 3 to 6. Not really much snowfall at all. So you guys are definitely gonna need to stay tuned to a forecast, because that could make a big difference in terms of how much snowfall you're going to receive by this coming weekend. So definitely stay tuned for further updates throughout the northern Midwest. However, there is expected to be more winter storms that are going to move through the United States right after this winter storm, as we're just going to see a train of mid-latitude cyclones move in right up along the Pacific Northwest and should bring heavy snowfall to a lot of the Rocky Mountain ranges. So if you're into skiing in a lot of these areas, it's going to be a good several weeks, as many troughs are going to move in, bring a lot of snowfall over this area and precipitation in general. So if you're hoping for that last minute ski trip, this would certainly be the best time to do so right now over the next few weeks with the slew of troughs that are expected to move through. But this next winter storm could impact the areas further southward in the Midwest and the more populated areas, where we'd be talking about Minneapolis getting involved, Des Moines, Iowa could get involved, and who knows, maybe even areas as far south as Milwaukee could get involved. And we can't even rule out Chicago completely missing out on this event either, as we do see there's going to be plenty of cold air just behind this storm system that should enhance the instability. And depending on how strong this ridge is by the time we approach March 19th, which is approximately 9 days from now, that will determine who exactly this snow will impact. And the European model is also showing at least somewhat of a similar scenario. Of course, there's going to be still pretty big differences, but it's at least still forecasting a similar type low pressure system move through the Midwest at this time. But a clear difference is that the snowfall will be mainly relegated to Michigan, portions of the interior Northeast, and mainly over Canada. So there's still a big difference when it comes to the forecast. We're definitely going to need to see how much cold air will exist and where exactly the slow pressure system will form, because it seems like the instability is a little bit too focused in a little bit northward. It would have to occur a little bit further southward for the United States to receive more significant snowfall out of this. But I'll certainly keep you guys updated once we get a bit more details with this forecast. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching.